These people were building for millennia. Everything they did was intended to last. That's something that doesn't fit in our mind. We don't do anything that we expect. So iPhones or mobile phones, they crash after 2 years. So now scholars have two alternatives. Either they go back and redo the work and challenge the assumptions, or they repeat the same idea. So they repeat the same idea because it's easy. These guys had this crazy idea in many places of the world, different continents, built the thing. Sometimes they built it with a level of precision and talent that we cannot match. It's impossible to replicate. And then they disappear and they don't leave a word saying what was on their mind.
Switch it. We'll go like this and then like this because we don't want Mike to be the star of the show. We want Henrique to be the star of the show.
Welcome to the multiverse, Henrique. It's great to meet you. Great to be here recording today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Welcome back, actually. For the first time ever, we missed downloading one on time. A restream wouldn't. I missed by 2 hours. So Henrique was gracious enough to come back and share his presentation about it, what he does for his YouTube channel and that kind of thing. So Cyclopean walls, why don't we start there? Like, what is the definition and like what is your definition? Because not everything's a Cyclopean wall that they're calling a Cyclopean wall, right?
Yeah. So Cyclopean is dangerous term in the mainstream because they don't like it. They feel it's old-fashioned and misleading and a lot of bad words. And so it was never defined. It started to be popular in the 19th century when some initial scholars that were into archaeology were traveling with the grand tour around Europe, like some aristocratic folks that had the best life one can think of, just going around and discovering stuff. Times with dynamite. And they read that some texts mentioning that the walls in Mycenae were built by the Cyclops. And then they said, okay, the walls in Mycenae were built by the Cyclops, so this is Cyclopean. And they started looking for other Cyclopean likewise walls, and they will be finding all these walls, and they are actually in many, many places. And come the 20th century, and as academia becomes more bureaucratic, they wanted to redefine everything and be more strict. And so they obliterated the term Cyclopean and decided to use alternatively polygonal.
Polygonal, okay, yeah.
Yeah, polygonal. Yeah.
That's what I say. Whatever.
Potato,
potato. It's potato, Henrique. It's not
in some fashion. If you say it in a way, and being foreigner and my English is not perfect, so I may say it in a way that the walls have multiple wives. It's not what I meant.
Got it.
The other one is Herodotus Herodotus. Is 6 one way, half a dozen another.
Herodotus Herodotus.
And
sorry, Cyclopean turned into
so the Cyclopean becomes meaning with big, bulky, and strong, and separates from the polygonal, which represents the perfectly fitted walls. I use the two terms indistinguishably, and I like the term Cyclopean. I think there's a lot of jokes to be made about it, either on the big side or the one-eyed giant, or a lot of immature jokes can be made about it. What it means is walls that are built without the common squared blocks. So since forever, people have been building, and they prefer to use cuboids of stone to build stuff, because that's the most practical. They're interchangeable, they're fast, you can store, you can assemble many at the same time. So everything in the world since forever until now is built with blocks that are cuboid. At a point in time, one guy decided it could be interesting to do, instead of cuboids, do some crazy shapes. And
make it as hard as possible.
Yeah. And that's, you got it. Why? How? When? How could anyone be deciding to do something like that? It's absurd. There's no evident advantage. And if it was happening in one place on Earth, it would be interesting on its own. But it's happening in many, many places, and becomes like a mystery, and an ancient mystery. How this crazy idea travels from one side to the other of the planet. Why did it shows up spontaneously in some regions, becomes very fashionable within those regions, and then as soon as it starts, it disappears? There's no good answer for that, especially because all of it happens in prehistory, before writing.
Exactly.
And so these guys had this crazy idea in many places of the world, different continents, built the thing. Sometimes they built it with a level of precision and talent that we cannot match. It's impossible to replicate. And then they disappear, and they don't leave a word saying what was on their mind. And my quest has been first to go and look at them, because I really fancy look at them, and then trying to understand them. That I can't, but I like the process. And finally, as a suggestion from my son, I decided to make a YouTube channel about it, because I think he was trying to avoid that I talk to him about it, and I'll find someone else to talk to. And here I am talking to someone else about it.
People who are interesting. That's why we got to get you to one of these conferences we go to, huh, Mike?
That's cool. That's cool. So let me see if I have this correctly. The architecture that we're referring to has two striking characteristics. First, but perhaps not foremost, is the size of it. We are talking megalithic. So some are larger than others, some are smaller than others. We'll talk about carrying, how to move the stones later on. But the second and the most prominent striking characteristic is polygonal architecture, which used to be called Cyclopean. What it means is non-cuboid, non-square, non-rectangular bricks. The images that we see that allow for the sloped sort of isosceles type of triangle pathway to the right of your head, that's what unites these places. And we're going to look all across the whole globe. Okay.
So the reason it's I find it amazing is that, like the megalithic, whenever we see like two dolmens, one in Western Europe and another in Korea, they are very similar, but the official and the reasonable explanation for it is that, okay, if you want to build something big, you should do it with something hard, which is rock. Secondly, if you want to do something big, you should better use a big stone, because otherwise the thing will fall on its head. And that's the best way to have a big structure, is to do a dolmen, like two walls and one slab on the top. It's not a really there are no other alternatives at doing it in another way. When it comes to polygonal or cyclopean, there are plenty of alternatives, better alternatives, easy, and doing it's just not a choice of necessity or practicality. Is reverse, is a choice of style and affirmation. So it's by definition a cultural trait, something that people do to express themselves. And if they are doing this in a specific region, in a specific timeline, then it's a cultural movement. However, the mainstream just doesn't recognize it. They prefer to look at pottery, that I think is worthless, in the sense that if you have like any guy can make a bit of pottery, or pottery shards are really not important. But they see a particular design in pottery and say, you see, there's a relation from A to B because this pattern repeats. But they see a pattern made with hundreds, thousands big stones, and they say, well, there's nothing to see there. Obviously, for us, it needs, at least it captures the attention that the stones are there and they mean something for the people that had built them. They committed huge amount of resources doing it. One of the big questions, and most importantly around Peru, is, and also ones in Turkey, that they are so difficult to achieve, so perfect in their shaping, in their curving, in their fitting, that
and massive too.
Yeah, and massive. One person just cannot. We cannot really know how it was done, and we came up with the very several alternative ideas trying to explain it. All of them are pure speculation because we just don't know. One thing we know, it was not easy, and because we cannot do it again, so it's not easy. Still, the mainstream doesn't want to admit that it is not easy, so they push it on really small timelines, and they make the history simply doesn't fit. They try to have people, ancient people, building incredible stuff that we cannot repeat at lightning speed, and at the same time saying, oh, they were really, really primitive. They had no tools, no metal, no skills. They were just cavemen, basically. And cavemen built the pyramids in 20 years.
That's one of the points that I really appreciate that you made in your recent video, that some of the mainstream narratives almost make it harder to believe or harder to corroborate because they imply two things, both primitive technology and a very rapid timeline. And it's like, when you have to hold by both of those things, it almost opens the door to some of the more far out there, wilder theories about how they got constructed, as opposed to if you just admit, hey, with primitive technology and maybe some technology that we don't realize they had, maybe we don't, a little bit more technology than we understand, and also maybe it took like 10 times longer than we think. Look at how long it takes to build stadiums and skyscrapers today. Exactly. A lot of it depends on the funding and whether or not the construction companies are in line and whether or not they're building it correctly.
Right.
Mistakes are made sometimes. Don't say they built it in 20 or 40 years. It might have took them 100 years.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just to fit some crazy deadline that they impose on themselves.
Right.
So somehow people understood that, like, the pyramids are built for a funeral. They could be a funerary pyre. That's okay. I can relate to it, but it's impossible that they were built for a funeral. The funeral happens unannounced. You cannot just prepare a building that takes 26 years to build in time for a funeral. Even that, it's not just that it takes 26 or 260, that I think it's more reasonable to say. It's not just the amount of time, is the finishing date. If you go to any history book, you will see that the pyramids were built for the funeral of King X or King Y. That the guy will die, they will embalm his body, and then they put him on these crazy boats. The boat will travel the river, and the mummy was transported inside the pyramid, and the pyramid was closed. That is written everywhere. So for this to be true, the pyramid had to be ready when the guy dies. And how long before they knew the guy was going to die?
Right.
Saying it was built for a pyramid implies the thing was built in 3 weeks.
And on one hand, if the building that you're constructing is on the order of magnitude of a human's lifetime to finish, okay, if it was one king that decided he wanted to do it, he could say, hey, you just got to get it done in 50, 60, 80 years whenever I make it there. But on the other hand, it also lends a lot of credence to the idea that the structure was discovered and repurposed and say, hey, this would be a tremendous place to have some highly elaborate ritual ceremonies, since we don't have to build it from scratch. It's already done.
Yeah, and they, in my view, they are like a cathedral in the sense that there are dead kings inside the cathedral. Actually, there are no dead kings inside the pyramids, only inside cathedrals. But dead kings go inside cathedrals, and cathedrals are built within a long span of time. And lots of them have these meandering plans with multiple chambers and different styles and stuff in front of another, because since they are built within a long timeline by several generations, sometimes plans change along the way. And this is pretty much as obvious on the pyramids. I just use the example of the pyramids because it's really well known and understood by everybody. I'm not an expert on pyramids in any way. People really are much better than me, which is easy. I try to focus more on the little known places with Cyclopean walls, and I found it more interesting, the European ones, because first they're closer to home. But I used to live in Brazil for a long time, so I visited the Peruvian ones firsthand. Back then it was closer to home, those. But the thing with with European ones is that we have a lot of other cross references from history. Unlike in Peru, where they are told it was built by the Incas.
Right.
All we know about the Incas were a small amount of information that survived the Spanish conquista, and we have little to go for. So if you're starting to do videos about the history of the Inca and their work, whatever that might be, it's a very short video. There are like 2 books that are more or less authoritative about what happened, and both of them, they are not credible. They were written by people later on with serious political agenda trying to shape the narrative back then.
So what you're saying essentially is that you can't connect the two because of this sort of the destroying of the history of what happened in Peru. We can't connect, like, the two theories that disconnect them should be they're more likely that these sites are connected than not is what you're saying.
I think that we have zero information about them.
Yes.
And it's all massive speculation.
Which is
and
rampant.
Especially on the South American side. Because on the South American side, we have basically nothing. Those people were not writing. There's nothing written about they did. What we all know is some small stories that were written down in book by two guys. One was a Spanish priest, and the other was a native Inca mixed with a Spanish lord. So he was a mixed guy. That he was a politician. So he was running for power in a way.
But Henrique, those guys are always super honest about everything. Politicians.
Yeah.
So.
Politicians, they always say, and especially when it's things that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. We know exactly what they meant. So in a recent video, you mentioned like geopolymer, flotation ramps, anti-gravity dinosaurs. What is your leading theory on this, or we just don't know?
Yeah, number one, I don't know. Number two, most of the polygonal walls are like these ones. They're fairly achievable to make. And of the hundreds of sites that we have, like in Europe, only a handful are complex in the terms of the construction skill.
Got it.
So I'd say 99% it's normal tech.
Yeah.
Just people with time on their hands and a strong commitment to achieve a result. What explains the weird stuff, I don't know, but I tend to like simple explanations, stuff that doesn't really require any
Aliens.
yeah, or any other element that we cannot see.
Right.
For instance, if we talk about geopolymer, I think it's possible, it's feasible, it's usable for to solve some of the most hard to understand problems. The objections that the mainstream has against geopolymer, like it would not look like rock, is something that they don't know, because no one knows what happens to a geopolymer after 800 years.
Right.
So let me do a detour here. Have you seen the pictures of this wheel inside the coal mine that is petrified, and these stairs that is petrified, or a hammer that was found in a mine in the US that is inside a rock?
No, but I'm going to try to find it while you talk about it.
Yeah, so if you look like hammer inside the rock mine, you'll pretty soon you'll get that type of image. It's a hammer that was like inside the rock, and the hammer is quite new. The problem here is that the phenomena of rock formation should require, yeah, you have that. To build that rock around the hammer, the traditional knowledge would say that it was a process that required thousands, millions of years.
Yep.
But here you have it. It's 100 years old at most. The thing is, the geological processes are not understood because we were not there to watch them. And things can change much faster than we are less to understand. Thus, leading me to conclude that saying a particular stone is not a geopolymer because it does not look like a freshly cooked geopolymer says nothing about how it was 1,000 years or 2,000 years or 10,000 years ago.
You're making too much sense, man.
Then, on the other hand, I have a reason against it, which is geopolymer or any type of chemical approach is super energy intensive and expensive. We all live in houses built out of cement. Cement is a geopolymer, a particular type, and we find it cheap and available, but it is built in massive factories that consume huge amount of energy.
There's a much bigger cost of energy that goes into separating the components to make cement so that it can be re-put together in very particular quantities precisely to make your house. That energy cost is absorbed by the manufacturer that people don't see. But from the second law of thermodynamics, from an organization perspective, high cost of energy to make that uniform cement, or the uniform like food or drink that you buy at the store. If I buy a drink that tastes the same in another state, it's the same type of energy cost.
Yeah, I wish some academics on the archaeology side knew as much, half of the physics that you know.
So
it will solve a lot of problems, because what you just said is obvious for a person that knows about physics.
Yeah.
But they just cannot understand it. They just don't relate to it.
Well, I really appreciate the example that you showed with the hammer, because typically catastrophism versus uniformitarianism is couched in terms of these global catastrophic type. Well, it was big or slow or big and fast. But what you showed was catastrophic for that hammer. The hammer got eaten up, right? It got captured. So these things can also happen at small scales. There are fast processes and slow processes.
Yeah, and the thing is that we don't have any sample size to understand what happens in the course of 2,000 years. What we have from the past are some barely written texts of people that were minding their own business and usually were doing information about accounting, and we don't have a lot to go to.
Yeah. And archaeology uses this principle. We work from the known to the unknown. But I call bullshit on that because they take a bunch of different, like they take some, not all of them, some take these massive leaps. It's like, whoa, where are you going with that? You don't know the chemical process that happened 10,000 years ago or 100 years ago. And then all the different environmental factors that may or may not have happened in the meantime. And like, you don't know any of that. So the known to the unknown is nonsense to me.
Yeah,
Most,
I
Go ahead.
call the known to the unknown
Uh-huh.
DiCaprio dating.
DiCaprio dating. So you told me this last time and I didn't get it. So tell me again.
So DiCaprio dating is an homage to the particular tastes of dating by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yes.
And it goes this way in archaeology. Imagine you're visiting a ruin and you see a plastic bottle on top of that ruin, and you say, I now know that the ruin is older than the plastic bottle. How old is it? It could be 1,000 years, 100 years, 1,000,000 years. We don't know. It's just we know that it's older. But the DiCaprio dater confuses the minimum with the maximum. And for them, no older than also means no older than. Meaning, he looks at the plastic bottle and says, a plastic bottle must have come from the 1970s. So the ruin is from 1969. No more. And it goes as they do the same with ruins as Leonardo DiCaprio does this with his girlfriends.
Right.
You see, they need to be older than 18, and he does follow that, but not very far. Okay.
That's awesome. And this is happening in so for example, like in Peru, in Nazca, they have all these mummies that have basically just been savage, ravaged, looted, right? And then they find this stuff from like the 1980s, trash and stuff. That's how they date the looting. But then they go, so that would be like saying, oh, I found this Pepsi bottle or whatever. And so that's how old these mummies are, when we know these mummies are way, way older,
Yeah, and a lot of times the dead bodies are used as a dating device because dead bodies are actually the best way.
They're carbon.
They're carbon datable,
Yeah.
and it means that there was a person in there. It was some, and if there's a person inside the building, maybe they're related. But there's no indication. The building could be there, and the dead body was transported. Well, we know the dead body went there, was carried.
Right.
So
it doesn't mean you can't use anthropology while you're there, but like the further you go back in time, the harder it is to apply anthropological findings to archaeological sites. It's just my opinion. In 4,000 years, you might as well throw a lot of it out the window,
Yeah. So dead bodies are being important. They are incredibly misused by conventional archaeology. They do. They just disregard. So one thing that I've been clashing in my videos again and again is the following. At the end of the Bronze Age in Europe, around 1200 BC, there was a big change in the population profile. It's a period called the Bronze Age collapse. And it is like that because it's when the big empires of the era, the Mycenaean and the Hittite, they disappear. They crumble. And soon after starts a period called the Dark Ages, or the Greek Dark Ages. It's also associated with some troubles in Egypt, described as the crisis of the sea people. Whereas some people were coming by boat and they were either fighting against the Egyptians or they were enlisting as mercenaries to help the Egyptians. So these were clearly dislodged people that were going around on boats. This event is very much understood as a whole, and hardly anyone challenges it. The problem here is that most the most mainstream version says that nothing really important happened. It was just a change of regime. I go there and look at it and see that two things happen during this period. Number one, polygonal masonry, the Cyclopean works, they disappear. They disappear in this century or two. They simply stop being built in most of Europe. That's one. Number two, the burial practices, they move from inhumation, from putting the dead bodies intact on the ground, into burial, into cremation, into burning them. So something happened that changes the way people build their temples and process their dead. This is really a sharp cultural change. And then I go look and say, oh, what was the preferred death ritual practice for culture X? It varies. Sometimes they cremate, sometimes they bury. And I ask, how come? How is this not a cultural trait? How is it not a marker of something? How that it's not important how dead bodies are, how dead relatives are handled. That it's obviously important, and but they are generally ignored. The other way that the dead bodies are generally ignored by the mainstream is that they don't do enough carbon dating. So they can, but they don't. Why? Because it deviates money from paper writing, and they prefer paper writing from whatever versus then doing the tests. There's a very beautiful place in France called Saint-Odile, and the wall there is quite mysterious. No one really knows when the wall was built and why, and it's just there out of place and out of context. And a lot of research had been done over the years, several papers being done until 1998 or something like that, when this French lady decided to pick up some wood stuff that was inside the wall. I missed the name. Clamps. Okay, the wall has clamps made of wood, and the clamps were in the museum. So she went there, carbon dated the clamps, and determined that the clamps are from the 7th century AD. So there you have it. The clamps are from the 7th century AD. But come on. For decades, no one even thought about doing it. They kept writing papers and doing signs and this is very mysterious and whatever.
So you bring up an interesting point. So cost, like the funding that it takes to get this data is real. There's a cost associated with it. You also have to have people willing to go out in the field and do repetitive, tedious work to get that. But I'm starting to realize or be aware of the fact that in the academic world, where publishing is king, if you got a little bit of data, it's better to just start talking about it, start typing about it. Just be careful with your conclusions and go ahead and try to publish something about it, because maybe the funding dried up to go get the real data that it would take to draw the big definitive conclusions. In many cases where a lot more data is needed. So anyone can type a report about some scrawny little data if you're careful about it.
Exactly. So they become paper pushers. They just care about writing and agreeing with whoever wrote something before, repeating whatever is being told. So they quote each other insistently. And the problem here is that if someone comes up with a lie, that lie is then quoted and quoted and requoted, and soon after you don't know what is truth or wrong. So for instance, the guy that discovered Mycenae and Troy, that studied Mycenae and discovered Troy, it's a German guy called Henrique, some really hard name. He had a thing for dynamite. He discovered everything with the use of dynamite. And another talent that he had was finding some incredible golden jewelry inside the places that he had been bombing down. Some of the jewelry that he finds is not like what the actual people, not exactly the same as the people in that time were doing. It's a bit off. So, for instance, he is credited with finding a gold mortuary mask in Mycenae called the Mask of Agamemnon. Agamemnon never existed, but he gave that name, which is fine. Okay, I can call it.
But I
Agamemnon.
saw the movie Troy. In the movie Troy, he was in there, so that's what I was going off of. But
yeah,
not a real guy. Bummer.
The Agamemnon mask
Killed me.
is the very is a gold mask in a ritual bed for a dead Mycenaean king is likely.
Okay.
So there are some of those things to be found. As good and as perfect and as exceptional as the one by Agamemnon, no. So he may have forged it.
That never happens in archaeology.
No, never.
Never.
So, despite we know the guy had really bad ethics on his work, he was very influential because he had like really deep pockets to do whatever, including buying gold.
Yeah.
And he left a lot of stuff. So now scholars have two alternatives. Either they go back and redo the work and challenge the assumptions, or they repeat the same idea. So they repeat the same idea because it's easy. You get to a point that you cannot understand what is true or what is not true, because within the amount of information, there's a lot of information that is just being flushed and conclusions that are being taken on top of conclusions. So all this goes to say that we, in our little community of weirdos, we have been criticized often for coming up with speculative, unbased theories. But that's exactly what mainstream has also. They don't have anything different than us.
No. Yeah. It always seems so. Go ahead, Mike.
One of the themes that we're like really hitting on the central nerve of is the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning, and it takes both to do science, but you have to understand which one is the foundation and which one is the roof. If you're trying to treat your roof like your foundation, then you're going to have a lot of trouble in your house. But if you know the difference between your foundation and your roof, that's like the line we need to strike to go ahead. I don't know how else to say it, but that's why we have to have these conversations.
Yeah. So usually, and I've ranted too much on this topic. Usually I'm more just interested on how beautiful the walls are, how amazing the skill of the builders were, and trying to figure out what was going on to their minds. And because I just find amazing that these people would go to exceptional amount of work to do something that for us is not important. Let me give an example of how it goes. You have Rome, which is an amazing place with lots of history. And to the side of it, there are a dozen, less than 100 kilometers away, cities with magnificent Cyclopean walls that never visit. So every year, every day, millions of people go to Rome and they get bummed on traffic. They are overpaying. They wait in lines. They don't see anything. They have to, just to make a selfie, they have to wait for 10 people to move. It's not a pleasant experience. But if they went 50 kilometers south, they will be in a place like Norba or Alatri that is incredibly beautiful, totally empty. And the food is great because the restaurants are eager to get people to visit them. There's parking just at the door. You can just drive by and park your car. And the places are awesome, and no one really knows about them. And that's what I like to go and look. And in a way, it's nostalgic because those places are there because they were built in polygonal fashion, in Cyclopean fashion. Of everything that was built on that era, nothing else survives except for the walls.
Right.
because the walls are so tough, so strong that nothing survives. And it goes back to the motivations of the builder. What was going through the mind of the builder to decide that I'm going through all this extra work and try to build something that will stand for millennia?
Well, isn't that it? Like the staying power they want it to last longer. That's the only thing I can think of. They want it to
Or
last
they
as
were
long as possible.
really afraid of some event.
Yeah.
Or they had a tremendous confidence on their role in the universe. Like for them, they would be here forever.
Which is where the anti-gravity dinosaurs come in. Got it.
And all of those imply more than one use, because even a magnificent temple or cathedral,
Correct.
even if it's only used for funerary processions, you're going to have more than one funeral there. Everybody that's important, you're going to have a lot of funeral rituals in the same place. A massive pyramid for only one person's funeral, ridiculous.
Yeah. So these people were building for millennia. Everything they did was intended to last. That's something that doesn't fit in our mind. We don't do anything that we expect. So iPhones or mobile phones, they crash after 2 years. So we are living in a planned obsolescence era of 18 months. And we say it would be awesome if they lasted 5 years. And these guys were building stuff that would last 5,000 years.
Or longer.
Yeah. So they had a total different approach to their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, that's one of the things I like talking to you about, is that you're really, really just fascinated by these sites. You just, in the process, come across some of the, drama and debates. And so can we take a look at some of your favorite sites? Are you prepared to do that? Show us some stuff today? No,
I haven't brought anything to show.
You don't have to. I didn't ask you to. I was just curious if you had any on a quick draw. Brittany, can you make a timestamp of that? We can throw some stuff in after, but which focusing on Europe?
If you go to my channel then and you pick up some movies, you could go to the channel that is on the video that is on the homepage of the channel.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. And that video it's basically like the summary of what is Cyclopean walls. And I've chosen the best footage of the best places.
Got it.
To show.
Perfect. We can roll that in the background.
It has it goes through a lot of places, but the places that I prefer the most, that one is Alaka Oyuk in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the precision, the way the stones are blended together. It's incredible. And they are totally 3D. So you can see now a little bit on the top, you see that it's curved. This is not something that is just for face. It's just, it's totally curved. You see that little ridges. It's incredible how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also like a lot, this is Sardinia, I also like a lot the sites of the Pyramid of Hellenikon, which is my favorite place in Greece, which is a really small site that is sort of like a pyramid made with polygonal walls, obviously, and God knows why, God knows how. It's just, why would anyone build that? Then in Italy, my favorite one is Alatri, is a city that has a massive astronomical clock on top of a mountain, all made with polygonal walls. And those are like my favorite stuff. In South America, it's Sacsayhuaman is by far the best stuff.
Yeah, and so that's cool. So they can go directly to your site, and right on your YouTube channel, right on the front page is basically a loop of all the best.
It's the video that I made thinking of people that go to the site for the first place. So what is Cyclopean walls? Why are they special? What? Mm-hmm. It's not It's just that. And then all the other videos that I make, I try to elaborate on one idea that I keep on developing and keep on thinking about it. Try to tell the story of some special wall, what happened with them, or try to understand what was going through the mind of the builders.
It's funny how science sometimes progresses. Obviously, it's the endeavor of science to classify and categorize things. It's like kind of the tool to use for science. So when it comes to these old walls, they happen to find them in Mycenae first, which hence why they were begin to be called Cyclopean, which is kind of arbitrary. If they had been discovered in some other continent or site first, it could have been another arbitrary name. And then polygonal does a better job of describing the similarities among them, but you still have to take a subtle look at the differences from site to site and across time. Sometimes I sort of like categorizing and classifying things, but sometimes I also wonder if we should just let things be as they are. It's not
I like Cyclopean because it's the original term, and it's not used only for Mycenae. And also that's interesting, which is it doesn't mean big giant with one eye.
Right.
There are two sources for the word Cyclopean, like two usages by different people. One group of people would be like Homer or Aristophanes or Aristotle. They would be talking about plays, theater, and it's fiction, and the gods, and they talk about the Cyclops as being the quintessential big junk guy with one eye, and he was kind of brutish, and that's the story of him. Those authors never talk about constructions or walls. The authors that talk about constructions and walls are like Pausanias or Pliny the Elder. They are historical writers. They are not non-fiction. They are non-fiction. They are not writing plays, and they are describing the things that they were told and they believe. And like Pausanias, they travels around the whole of Greece and writes down about everything. And he writes the walls of Mycenae were built by the Cyclops. Pliny the Elder writes something like that, like this: towers or walls were invented by the Cyclops. And then goes on to describe a lot of things like, and boats were invented by this guy, and metal smelting was invented by this other guy. So both of them are describing factual events in a non-fiction way, and they use Cyclops without context. It doesn't say the big junky guy or whatever. No, it just says Cyclops. And if you look at the origin of the word in Greek, ops means eye, and cycle means round.
Oh, round.
Like in bicycle
or clock.
or cyclone, or so Cyclope means round eye. So if you're talking about the people with round eyes, it looks like a racial description.
And that's where you get touchy stuff in this day and age. Got it.
But I was also kind of hearkening to that Book of Enoch story where certain people, certain watchers taught certain things to certain people. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you stop talking, if you don't look at this idea with a 20th or 21st century mindset, and imagine this is something that was written 2,000 years ago by a guy that had slaves and lived in a brutal society, and things were really different for him. He had no problem in using what we now call racial slur. So, for instance, Eritrea and Ethiopia and Congo and what else? Guinea, all of these words mean black man. And that's what they would be describing. So what's that place? It's the place of the black man. They were not concerned on how these things affected each other. They were just describing what they saw with the words they used. So going back to the round eyes, if the thing was written by a Chinese man like Confucius, we would say, oh, he's talking about Europeans. But we do have an event happening in Europe at the onset of the Bronze Age, when people start building with Cyclopean walls, which is the arrival of the Indo-Europeans. The Indo-Europeans are coming from the east, not sure where, and they are a population called Amnaya usually. And these people, they are really squarish. I don't know how to say this in English. They have like square jaws and really large foreheads, and they have like very strong features. And I find it perfectly reasonable that they look at the Mediterranean living at that time and say, well, these guys are soft and round. So they will be the round eyes, the guys that are like more roundish.
It's just funny to me that like we have to consider like how we interpret race in like our ridiculous way nowadays. We're trying to then put it through their lens as well, and you can't do that.
Yeah,
they saw race totally different. In fact, they were just like you said, describing what they saw.
The crew of people that built it. They came from so and so place. They're excellent builders, and that's the people that came and built.
They were this color. They had round eyes. They were this tall. You can't say black on the internet without being very specific now, or like prefer to like specific racial traits, because then for some reason that's bad, or I guess I don't know how that happened.
I mean, I don't understand it either, because it was obviously that these things have been happening over time, and there was a lot of movement and clashes.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
Another thing that is very interesting is that we are all talking now in English. Right? I'm Portuguese. I speak in Portuguese.
I was literally thinking about this yesterday, but sorry, continue.
Yeah, and all the languages that are used from Europe, from the Americas actually, into India, they all share a common root. So English, German, French, Russian, Hindu, all those languages, they come from a single root, which is the Indo-European. This was a discovery made in the 19th century by a very curious guy that got a post in the British Indian Empire, and he was transferred there, and he had been prepared to go, I think, to Greece or something. So he had been studying Latin and Greek for a long time, thinking that he would get an appointment in that area. But he was transferred into some bureaucratic outpost in India, and he said, well, how do I manage? I don't understand the word they're saying. I've been studying these languages and now I'm useless. But eventually he went and started to pay attention, and he got really fast the Hindu language. And as soon as he got the language, he understood there is some pattern that repeat on these languages, and doesn't repeat, for instance, in Chinese or Japanese. These languages share a lot of ideas, and the way they're built and the way they're structured and the way the main sounds and the main words, like for really important thing like father, they all share the same core. And he came with a theory that has been more or less proven to be factual, which is the Indo-European theory. All these languages come from a same family.
Right.
And all the languages spoken in Europe these days, they are from this family, except for two.
I'm trying to remember which two.
And these two are the Georgian on the east side of Europe, like on the extreme east of Europe, and the Basque in Spain.
In northern Spain,
Yeah. So these two, they don't belong there. They don't belong to this family. So if there was a family of languages that spread into all we are speaking today, it means they're coming from somewhere and they've been replacing whoever was there. And whoever was there was not talking the same language for obvious reasons. These two places are the last remnant pockets of the old language of Europe. And these two places have in common Cyclopean walls. And other places with the Cyclopean walls have remnants of languages that are likely related to this odd family. Let's, for instance, Sardinia, they would have the Nuragic. The Nuragic was speaking a language that we don't know, but is arguably similar to those languages. There's the Pelasgian or the Greek substract in Greece, and there's the Ibero in the south of Spain. And all these languages, they have like similarities from one to the other, and apparently they are related. So it seems to me that all these people, they had a common family of languages. They had a common family of building style. So they were the Europe before the arrival of the Indo-Europeans. Those are the Cyclops.
Wow. And I never heard that. Last time we talked, I don't think you mentioned the language connection there. Is that something that you've been thinking about for a while?
Yeah, for more than 2 years. The first time that I thought about it was when I read some relation that saying that the Georgian and the Basque, they are completely off. There's no relation to anything else except very tiny relationship one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense if they were part of the same family and they've been apart so long and they've been in contact with so many different experiences. And furthermore, both peoples survive their language because they're very, very isolationists. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So both of them, they just like live on their own world and they don't mix and they have their own thing. They live in their mountains. And
that's what I was going to say. Mountains have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, they're fiercely independent. And so it's likely that they get to preserve these old traces, but they mix a lot and they vary too much. And I've been looking at this, and one of the puzzles that I had is that there was no Cyclopean walls in the Basque country.
Okay.
Officially nothing. And just the other day, randomly, I was looking at the video, and the video was talking about a tower that could be Roman. And I look at it and this doesn't seem Roman. This seems slightly Cyclopean. And then I go and look on the map, and on the map, just like 3 kilometers north, there's a place called Bronze Age Village of whatever, a really hard name to spell because it's Basque. It's in the Basque country, and this Bronze Age village is built with Cyclopean walls. So they're there.
Wow.
And I just found it like a week or two ago.
In Georgia?
No, this one is in the Basque country.
Basque.
In Georgia, they have plenty of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's interesting. So that moves your sort of hypothesis along a little bit, which is cool. Is that so? That's the direction you're going to keep chasing this?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find something that I enjoy. So my happiest discovery of the other day was that I was looking at some castle in Italy to see if I could find good pictures of the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And for some crazy reason, the algorithm of Google search knows what I'm looking for and shows me a picture of a place that I never heard of, and it's in Portugal, and it has polygonal walls. And I have to go there as soon as I cannot wait to go.
You're about to leave as soon as you stop talking to us, or what?
Something like that.
Do you know how many sites you've been to and on how many different continents? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I don't have a So I have a list on Google Maps
On
of
Google
all the
Maps.
places that I've been building up with Cyclopean walls. And this list is near 400 something sites.
Okay, mostly in
around.
Europe.
Yeah, the ones that I know the most are in Europe. There are plenty of them in Peru, a couple in Easter Island, some in Japan, a handful in India that I don't know a lot about them.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of odd cases, like one in Dubai and another in Egypt. Those are like odd cases. The one in Dubai I've visited personally, and I'd say I visited them in 4 continents and a couple of islands, and I have visited more than 50 of those.
Okay. And I'm wondering, do you know if there's a sort of a compendium, so to speak, of like, for example, there's an encyclopedia of Native American mound sites that Dr. Greg Little does. He's got a new one coming out. Do you know of anything similar for Cyclopean walls? Hey, man, that's your thing. It sounds, I mean, unless you're just doing this for fun, but somebody needs to put that together.
Yeah.
Well, if you've already got 400 saved in a personal Google Maps
No, it's
database,
public. It's public. It's public.
or
Everyone
you
can
post
go
it
there and
public,
check.
easy to turn that into some sort of CSV format, get it into some kind of GIS program or something. We need to get this real document. That's good.
So if you go to my channel, it's like on the links, it's there. You can just click and then you see all the dots around the world and they're marked. And whenever I found one, I'm very happy. I celebrate with myself and then I publish on X saying, look, I found a new one.
Awesome. So, I think about nubs a lot. Have you found a relationship between nubs and these sites? Like, so I know that some nubs are on some of the sites, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I have the most anticlimactic opinion about nubs.
Okay.
I think they are a meme.
A meme? Yeah.
A meme.
It's language, right? It's
just like something people saw and find it easy to replicate. And they find it. So let me spread my thinking about it.
Okay.
There are 200 odd places with Cyclopean walls in Europe. That's millions upon millions upon millions of stones shaped and fitted with odd shapes. Those are all of those stones are cut to fit to the stone next to it. And all of them have something in common, which is there's nothing written on it. No carving, no drawings, nothing. They're totally blank, except for 5 stones. Those 5 stones are 3 in Italy in different regions, arguably built by different people. One in Spain and another in Turkey. And the 5 stones have the same drawing, which is a dick, a phallus. So all these builders over hundreds of years are piling up odd shapes of stones and leaving them blank. They don't write a letter, they don't do a statue, nothing. They just put it there. At the end of it, 5 guys in 5 different locations unrelated to one another decide that, you know what, let me put something here. And what they carve is a phallus. Later on, the phallus by the door becomes a Roman cliche. So the Romans like to do it. And why do the Romans like to do it? To carve a phallus near the door for good luck, they say. And I was looking at the nubs and thinking that the nubs are exactly a phallus, representation of power and strength. It doesn't need to be, but it's likely that it's something like that. Why? You see nubs everywhere, all over the world, in so many different structures, from so many different ages, so many different stages. The second thing is nubs are left on purpose. Usually just a couple of nubs in the whole wall. They're not just everywhere. They are just, they could have, if they were practical, they should have taken all of them. But no, they leave a couple of them off. So they were intended at explaining something. And then it occurs to me that all it takes is for a person to travel to one place. Let's say he goes to Egypt and he is in the Menkaure pyramids that has some nubs in there, and he asks a local guide, what is that? And the guy says, it's to give power and strength to the wall. I like that. He goes back home, and when he's building his mausoleum or whatever, he says, do me one of those things to give power and strong.
Yeah.
And there you have it. That's a meme. It doesn't really mean that it started to be that way. I just think that it spreads because people at a point in time saw it and say, this is a good...
It makes a lot of sense.
And it's Occam's razor too, because if you try to look for an explanation of what purpose did the nub serve, you're necessarily coming up with a complicated reason that they needed it, which is not Occam's razor. Occam's razor says some guy did it, thought it looked cool. It's not that much harder. If you can already cut massive stone, you can easily leave a little nub on the corner as you wish. It's your trademark little signature, like a spoiler or a stripe on a car. It doesn't change the car at all. It's just a hood ornament.
Yeah, exactly. And then do you think about interpreting, like in 1,000 years, somebody trying to interpret our digital memes in any sort of coherent way, right?
Yeah, exactly. They won't find it, and also they won't find it. Why is it so relevant? And on top of it, the reason why one person copies the next one, it doesn't need to be the same. One guy can have this interpretation and say, I like this because it makes the wall strong. Another guy had some crazy idea and decided that he wanted to copy it because of other crazy idea.
Yes.
But he copied the
People
nub.
do that all the time. I don't agree with so-and-so, but it looks cool.
Yeah. And and likewise, I think that all other explanations saying that it is a language of sorts, I just came to the conclusion that if it's a language, it needs to be a really basic stuff. Okay, let's say the nubs are communicating something. I kind of agree with it, but it cannot be very complicated because otherwise no one understands it. It needs to be a very simple language. And what is the simplest bulgy stuff that we know of?
Like I talked to this guy and I really was interested in, and I'm open to anything, right? But he was interpreting as a form of Braille, for lack of contextual like information, right? And that's interesting to me as well. But I like the idea of like maybe it was just like a flex, like putting something up, a representation of status.
If it's
or whatever.
Braille, it's a very complex language, and it misses the point because no one really can read it now. And we know that these things move very far into the time, into the future and past. So the Greeks would love doing nubs. They left nubs everywhere, and the Romans have nubs everywhere. There are nubs in 19th century buildings. So if a 19th century building in Paris has nubs,
I've seen them.
Why? Did he knew the Braille, or he was just making a symbolic, slightly more polite dick on his wall?
Yeah, and it bums me out a little, but typically when you apply logic and reason and discernment to these things, it always bums you out if you're like excited about the fantastical explanations. I think it's possible that it could, like some sites in some situations, could be some form of language. I don't close the door on that, but it's far more likely that people are just playing copycat through the ages, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah, but it's important to understand that you can copycat a nub because you see one, you do one. You can come up with the similar idea for the clamps because the clamps are a really logical and easy way to put two big stones together. like those butterfly-shaped thingies. So those are really easy to understand why they travel and why they come up again and again, because they're easy ideas that are smart and they don't really make, they're not confusing. I cannot say the same about Cyclopean walls. There's no way on earth that a person comes up with this idea again and again and again and again. It's an idea that does not make sense. We don't understand how it was done. We don't understand why it was done. We don't understand the purpose. It's a lot of work. It's a huge commitment of effort to achieve it. So the builders were really into this thing. They were not just like leaving a nub here and there to make a joke.
Right.
They were really into it. So there must be a connection. So far, I have no doubt that the connection from Portugal to Armenia is clear. Is it this same connection going to the Americas? I don't know, but it's possible because people have been going by sea. This is another part that is quite interesting about the Cyclopean builders in Europe, not in the Americas. Cyclopean builders in Europe, they're never far away from the sea. They live very close to the sea always. They live in the south of Europe, the Mediterranean coast, that you can just be more than 200 kilometers away. And even in places like in France, there's only Cyclopean walls to the south, very close to the Mediterranean. There are no Cyclopean walls in Germany, no Cyclopean walls in Hungary, stuff like that. All these massive land masses, nothing. Another thing that we know for sure is that they will be one place that has Cyclopean walls is the Pantelleria Island in the Mediterranean. This island is a really tiny bit of speck of land that is closer to Africa than is closer to Europe. Actually, you can see the coast of Tunisia from that island, and vice versa, I guess. That island was inhabited since 20,000 years ago or so for the obsidian trade. It's an island. People were there picking up obsidian 20,000 years ago. How did they get there? By boat. All we know, people were going by boat across. So if people were going by boats in 20,000 years ago to the Pantelleria Island, into other islands, why not one of them got lost and end up in the sea and end up in the Azores or end up in America? Or put it another way, when the European discoveries sailed to the Pacific, everywhere they went and discovered, there were people living there. How did those people got there? By boat.
By boat.
The technology used by the Rapa Nui in Easter Island is the same technology used by the people that were trading in obsidian 20,000 years ago.
Yes.
So if the technology of that era could travel to Rapa Nui or Easter Island, it could travel to America.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
And it matches what you observed on the European continent, close to the coast on the western side of the continent. That's exactly what we saw on the South American side, all on the west, all near to the coast. Is it the proximity to mountains too? You have to have sort of mountainous terrain so you can quarry the stones to make the architecture, I guess?
Yeah, I don't think it's very important. There's another quirky of the European Cyclopean walls that I find super interesting. I don't have a proper explanation for it. I have a theory, which is all of the Cyclopean walls in Europe are south of parallel 44. If you go to do a line on parallel 44, you would get the Iberian Peninsula and the south of France, the really tiny bit of south of France, most of Italy, the Balkan countries like Croatia and Bosnia, and you have Italy and Greece and Turkey. So all the walls are south of it. North of it, you have significant land masses. You have the center of Europe, like Germany, France, etc. No Cyclopean walls. Why? Why is that line there? There's another explanation, another thing that separates this line south from north in the Bronze Age, which is on the north side. During the Bronze Age, the most common burial practice was cremation. On the south side, it was inhumation. On the north side, they were building with wood. On the south side, they were building with stone. On the north side, they were using mortar to build, to grab all whatever stones they were using. On the south side, the Cyclopeans don't use mortar.
Mortarless.
So what everything of these differences have in common? Wood for mortar needs to be, cremation needs wood to burn the dead bodies. Mortar needs wood to make the limestone into mortar, to lime mortar. And yeah, if you're building with wood, you need wood. And what is different on this area on the continent? North of parallel 44, it's way more, so south of it, it's way more dry.
Yeah.
So wood is scarcer to the south.
You can't play with my 10-year-old sense of humor, man. I'll get that every time. This is very fascinating. You showed this to me last time, so it's stark. If I just scroll like to the right, it's pretty stark. I think back to Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It very much aligns with that. Also, there's equatorial relationships and stuff. Post Ice Age. How do you fit the Younger Dryas impact, if at all, into Cyclopean wall? I think they're even that old.
No, I don't think they are so old.
Okay.
I think the walls, most of them are from the 3000 BC to 2000 BC and until 1000 BC. At 1000 BC, they mostly disappear. I think that they would start as a type of a village tribal endeavor. They will build these towers and hill forts, not to live in there, but as a totem. And then at the end of the Bronze Age, these populations start to be ruled by newcomers, and they apply that skill into building cities and walls. And after the Bronze Age, with the collapse of those empires, a new type of construction comes in, and the skill is mostly lost. Some buildings are still made this way, but they become very, very rare, and most of them, I think they are like an homage, a replication. People see it and try to do it because it represents an old style. And this lasts like until 500 BC. Around 500 BC, no more walls are built. This is the official timeline. I'm not making this date of the 5th century BC by myself. And then finally, in the 19th century, it appears back in a lot of forts around Europe, because people in the 19th century decided to rediscover the past, and out of infatuation, they would build some forts with polygonal masonry just because they found it was funny. The same thing that happened in the 6th or 5th century BC. The problem with the 5th century BC is that the fault is the Romans. The Romans are the only source we have for anything that happened in the prehistory of Europe. The Romans would get to places, usually no one was writing. They would introduce writing to most of the places they arrived in Europe. And even if there was some sort of writing, the Romans are the only people in the past that were interested in collecting information about the people they were meeting. No one did that before the Romans. It's interesting that we look at the Romans as being this tough colonialist imperial power, but they were way more like the America is today. They were a welcoming culture. They were a land of opportunities. People could become Roman very easily, and they would respect or align with their origins, and you could be Roman anything. The vast majority of the emperors from 200 onwards, or from the 2nd century from 100 onwards, they were not Italian at all. They were born somewhere else in the empire, and they would say, "I'm from somewhere else. There's this." Some of them have the name from the place they come. They are the emperor, whatever, Philip from Arabia. True case. Another thing that, like Seneca, the famous politician, writer, senator, etc., he was from Cordoba in Spain, and he wrote in Spain, in Ibero. He knew the language. He was there, and he talked about it being from Spain. And this makes that Rome was left us immense amount of information about the world they found in Europe. And before the Romans arrived, we have nothing. So historians apply that DiCaprio dating to say that everything in Europe is from the 5th century BC, because the first time we do have some certain information is the Romans arriving in a place and saying, this was here. Is it from the 5th century BC? I don't think so. I think it's much, much older, most of it. But the first time anyone took the trouble to express that information, it was the Romans.
Wow. And so we talked about, I've been wanting to ask you this earlier. I just wanted to make sure that I got it in here. Okay. Mentioned the different levels of sophistication across space and time of these, quote, Cyclopean sites. How many sites are sophisticated enough that you would say are unexplainable, and where are those like located geographically?
Yeah, the really crazy stuff, the outlandish one,
yes,
is one in Turkey, one site in Turkey, and I'd say two or three in Peru.
Okay.
Those are Alakayuk in Turkey and Sacsayhuaman in Peru, Cusco, and Ollantaytambo, those names are not easy, in Peru, and the Temple of the Sun of the Three Windows in Machu Picchu. Okay, those are the really awesome stuff. Cusco, Ollantaytambo, and Machu Picchu in Peru, and then Alakayuk. Then we have the secondary stuff. The secondary stuff is almost there. It's really awesome. We don't know how they were built.
That's the Turkey one?
That's the Turkey one.
Okay, I had no idea that existed. Did you, Mike?
No, and I thought maybe you were going to say Baalbek, so I appreciate this.
Yeah. All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure I'd never heard of that one in Turkey. So.
Yeah. And this one is exactly like mind-boggling as the Peruvian ones.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, I need to look more into that. Do you have a video on it?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, yeah.
And they have like 2 or 3 cities that were built like that, but only that wall is to that level. Everything else is, okay, nice, but not to that level of sophistication. There's also an interesting part about that place and its story, which is it's formerly a city of the Hittite. The Hittite are one of those empires in the Bronze Age that that collapses when the end of the Bronze Age. They are one of the few empires that has got the name of the people they conquered. The people that lived in that area were called the Hattian. The Hattian were conquered by an incoming guys, and the incoming guys established a two-tier civilization with the military men and the workers, and the military men called themselves Hittite after the Hattian. The Hittite went on to have a big empire that reached all the way into Israel today. They never built anything like the ones that have in their capital with the Hattians. So whenever they occupy other places, they would build stuff, but nothing like it. And finally, what language did the Hattians spoke? A language familiar to the Georgian and Basque.
Georgian and Basque, not Indo-European. Okay.
Not Indo-European. The Hattian, but the Hittite, they spoke Indo-European. So this site is just incredible. The way the stones are by there, fairly big, like this big, 1.5 meters across. And they are 3D shaped, curved, as are the ones in Peru. Then you have a second tier, which is you find it in Delphi, in Elion, both in Greece.
In Peru probably as well. You probably
a bunch of them in Peru. That you look at it and say, okay, it's the same skill, but they did not took the trouble to push it to the limit. And okay, one can see how it was done in the sense that, okay, it's a lot of work. It needs skill, it needs talent, but it doesn't get to the point that you don't understand how it was done. The leap of faith, of the leap of imagination, where we don't understand, happens when two curved surfaces match one to the other.
Right.
Because they're like statues, but there's a reverse statue. It's okay to do a statue. Some people can do really pretty statues, but do two reverse statues and having them match, it's difficult.
Yeah, and that's why those sites stand out at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo. But then I never even heard about that Turkey one, which is why I feel like a compendium of Cyclopean walls is a great idea, huh, Mike?
Yeah, it is. I'm doing it in video form, one by one, in painstaking work because I'm very incompetent in doing it, and I spend a lot of time. I waste a lot of time trying to come up with stupid jokes to say in the middle of the presentation.
They're my favorite part, man. Don't stop doing that. I watched hundreds of hours of people going to sites like this stuff, so I appreciate a little dick joke thrown in there, or dinosaurs, anti-gravity dinosaurs. You keep doing that, man. Don't you?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I find it. I really. That's my part. I wanted to be a comedian, but I'm not funny enough. So
one of the points I thought you made that was really good on one of your recent videos, the stone of the pregnant woman at Baal back in Lebanon, which is of course is unfinished. It would be the largest stone, whatever, if they had finished quarrying it properly. And I got to thinking, okay, why would something happen like this? Let's say you send an expedition out, from the empire on behalf of the empire, and the mission is to build the biggest temple ever in honor of the emperor. So and maybe the quarry guys got there first. The miners got there first and say, look at the stone formation. We're not worried about the transport guys. They're going to get here next week. We're going to surprise them. In fact, we're going to put the challenge on the transport guys. We're going to go ahead and quarry this whole stone. They got 3/4 done with it. Then the transport guy showed up 2 weeks later and said, guys, there's no way we can possibly carry this anywhere. But let's get something a little smaller, and then actually successfully make a temple about it so that the emperor will be happy. And then so the quarry guys, all right, joke's on you. You got to get this big one over here. It's your fault that you can't carry the big one. And then they all went and finished building the temple together. I had that idea from watching your video, and it's Occam's razor. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I would have done that.
I just think that the stone should be called your mama.
That's better than the stone of the pregnant woman, right? They would, and again,
you have
they
the same situation in other megalithic places. So if you have like the obelisk of Aswan, the one that is unfinished, is the biggest obelisk ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So the biggest obelisk is not standing there. It was abandoned.
Mhm.
In Easter Island, the biggest statue is unfinished on the rock. So at a point in time, they did not know how far they could go. They started to do some work. They started to go along. They started carving, and then, as you say, the transport guys say, and so come on, no way.
Mhm.
Well,
And
and
it stops there.
if the mission from the emperor was to build the biggest one, so like I used to work in a factory, and everyone is sort of a link in a chain, and you never want to be the weak link. So if the mission is to make the biggest one, I'm going to core the biggest stone I can until somebody tells me they can't move it, and then we're going to move the biggest stone we can until someone tells me we can't lift it, and then we're going to lift the biggest stone that we can to all build the temple
Yeah.
for the emperor and all.
Yeah, so the Inca, they had the piedra cansadas, which is exactly that. They would be carrying the stone up to a point, and then it would get stuck, and it couldn't. They could not move it further, and they abandoned it along the way.
Yeah.
And they call it the tired stones.
Mm-hmm. You find those at Easter Island too. Once didn't quite make it all the way or broke or whatever. I like the Yo Mama joke because it's a joke, but it's not, because if anyone in 1995 would have understood that you said Yo Mama about literally everything, right? And so it's just funny to me that they call it the stone of the pregnant woman, and just depending on which culture and civilization and how sophisticated or unsophisticated they would have been, they might have called it something else.
Yeah,
That's funny, man.
well, I think pregnant woman would be similar understanding as your mama. They are talking
Yes.
about a really fat lady. That's
True. True.
Yeah.
And that's where you came up with the name for your channel too, the One-Eyed Giant Building. Well, obviously, and the logos take on it's great. It's good stuff too. But I appreciate that, because what you're doing is you're making it funny for yourself. Like I laugh at my own jokes on this show all the time, so I get it.
Yeah,
Got to be fun for you, right?
Yes, I do. I do fun. I have like a lot of things that I do for myself, and very rare. So it's very rare that sometimes goes to the comment and says, "I got that joke," and I get like, yes, because some jokes I just put there to make myself laugh.
For you,
Like for instance, I use lyrics from musics that I fancy that are
sure.
and I use them in parts of the video just to say, okay, making
I'm glad you do that. I don't think it's too much extra time, because it puts more of your own personality and spin into the video. Otherwise, it's going to be just like other people's videos, you know?
Yeah, I think the problem here is that I think that being funny or being entertaining is a lot of hard work, and I cannot do it consistently.
Sometimes being really starchy and serious is hard work too. It can be harder work than you think to make really straight face the whole time.
I waste like hours of being not interesting to come up with a spike of lightening up, and it's funny that I often write the scripts and look at it and say, I should have a good joke here, and I should have a good joke here, and then I record the video and said, I don't like this video because I could not find a good joke. And that was I was coming. Some guy the other day come to me and said, I said something, but I should said something else, and it was funny. I said, oh my God, it was there. I just missed it.
Let me ask you a question, because I know you really try to avoid over speculating. But what if we found a Cyclopean wall buried Göbekli Tepe style? Then would you consider pushing your date back?
Immediately. I have no problem with that. We were very lucky with Göbekli Tepe because the thing should be forgotten. And if there was like a sequence of events that preserved that place for us in a way that it was discovered in 1996. And the guy that discovered managed to do some carbon dating and find out that it was 12,000 years ago. If the thing was discovered 20 years before, no carbon dating would be done, even though carbon dating existed. It was super expensive, so people would not be doing it. And they look at it and say, look, it has pottery, so it cannot be from the pre-pottery Neolithic. So they would be dating it for pottery. Another thing is that it was abandoned and covered up. If it was not abandoned, a new civilization, a new city would be built on top, and it would be jumbled up, and it would be very hard to know what is what, and it would be lost. Because the techniques that archaeology use are great until the Romans. Before the Romans, they are not great.
Right.
So they use stratigraphy. It's okay if you're seeing a couple of centuries, but if you put 5,000 years in stratigraphy, it just doesn't pile up all that nicely. Things start to go out of whack. Because a guy digs a basement along the way. And if a guy digs a basement along the way, everything is lost.
Yep.
They use pottery, but pottery is great for the Romans because the Romans had like an industrial society. They made hundreds of thousands of pottery shards, and they had fashions of pottery shards because they made so many. And there are dozens of pottery shards everywhere the Romans were. But if you go to older civilizations like the Cyclopean, the Bronze Age civilizations, usually you will find one pottery shard. I've seen this in more than one paper, one for Malta and another for Italy, and at least a third one that I don't remember where, that a whole site is studied and dated because they found one single shard of pottery that has a drawing. And because of that drawing on one bit of pottery, they say this thing is whatever.
We work from the known to the unknown.
Yes, one pottery shard is not known. That's the problem. It's not known. It's just a pottery shard. Furthermore, there's a way to use the pottery to do testing on the age, which is thermoluminescence. It's hardly ever done.
What, is it expensive or tricky or what?
It's not very conclusive. And it can lead to erroneous results. So why go to the trouble of doing a test on something that might get an off result when you can say, though, this looks like a Mycenaean curve, so this is Mycenaean.
Isn't that the test that will accurately tell you when the last sunlight has shone on that object? But
Exactly.
you have no idea. You're hoping it is near or about the time that object was used originally. But if you could even be the person that accidentally left light on it as you're transporting it, and then your test is off.
I think it's okay to work within large margins of error in archaeology as long as you call it what it is, right? I mean, everything's a large margin. It's the further you go back, the larger margin of error, and it compounds. So that if it's 1,000 years, then 10,000 years is, you know, like, I mean, might as well not even bother, you know?
Usually the hard sciences are a bit more honest, but not always, about this problem. But especially the biologists, they're pretty clear on saying that all their theories are based on fossils. And fossils are a really tiny speck of whatever was going on.
Right.
So for a bone to be fossilized, it needs to be 1 in a million or 1 in a billion bones. For every bone of a fossil, there were like 1 billion bones around. All the other were lost, and that one was preserved.
Yeah.
And so whenever they say stuff, they need to say, okay, look, this is just one bone. In thousands of years, anything can go. The same happens with prehistory. This is just one pottery shard. In thousands of years, people were breaking pots every day.
Yeah, they push dates back like on human intelligence and stuff when they find a little piece of a skull or fragment of a jaw or something like that. They go, this brain must have been this big, and he must have been this. Yeah, Yeah, just giant leaps. The known to the unknown doesn't seem to be part of the deal.
Yeah, and as Graham Hancock says, and I love the expression, things getting older, and they do. And it's funny that they don't get newer. It's very rare to come up and say, "Oh, we were wrong. This thing is not from the Greeks. This thing is actually from the Byzantines."
Right. Right. Have you considered like, you know, coming doing small conferences or whatever, presenting some of your like visits or anything like that?
Yeah, well, if I got invited, I'll go, but I'm boring in person, so.
I don't think so. I think you should come hang out with us at one of our next conferences we go to.
Yeah, I wish, but I think you live a bit far away from me.
Well, yeah, we had one dude fly from Ireland to the most recent one, but yeah, no, you're in Portugal, right?
Yeah. So Ireland is manageable.
Yeah,
Ireland I could do.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing is awesome because it's fun, and it's also I don't think anyone else is doing it in the way that you're doing it, which is just based off of passion and interest and like your own figuring out your own mystery. And you're also doing it in a very it's as boring as it might be. You're doing it in a very logical way, Henrique, and I don't like that. Or my I want to believe brain doesn't like that. And so, but I appreciate what you do, man.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm hoping for a breakthrough like you. I really want to believe, but whenever I see people being disingenuous with their opinions, I just say, okay, we are here criticizing the mainstream because they are disingenuous with their ideas. I don't think we should do the same. I think it's for us weirdos to be the voice of reason and common sense.
Yes. That's why I think your whole point that having unrealistic time frames and unrealistic technology subtracts from what could be a more reasonable hypothesis. Let's just say it took longer. Let's just say they had a little more tech, and that rules out a lot of far out there hypotheses.
Yeah,
so it's a very balanced approach.
Which is a crazy world where we live, whereas the weirdos are the reasonable folks, and we've seen this evolving in especially in the environment of the podcasts. Because podcasts are guys that have no room in mainstream media, that have no credentials. They just sit and talk to their friends about stuff they find interesting. By network effect, it grows and it brings on people. And then we get to these situations that they are calling wolf on major conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and that's happening. We're seeing that happen in real time.
Yeah.
So what's next in your travels as far as where do you want to go? Which walls have you not seen that you're trying to get to?
Yeah, so I'm now looking at the Balearic Islands. I'm hoping to go there in February. The Balearic Islands are the islands in the Mediterranean. They have a own Cyclopean culture called the Talayot. They build some crazy stuff on their own, and they are very much related to the whole Cyclopean culture.
Very cool. I'm pulling
the thing
it up.
It's not very exceptional in the sense, if you search, you can search something called Naveta de Tudons. So
NAVETA
space TUDONS space Menorca. MEN. Oh, you got it already there.
There it is. Boom. Got it. Okay.
See the pictures. It's really nice.
Yeah. Okay. This is next on the list then.
Yes.
Excellent. It looks like a beautiful place to visit too. Wow. What on earth is this thing? Do you know what the conventional explanation is of this thing?
For a funeral.
Obviously. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. What kind of adventure are you gonna have to go on to get to this? Because this is right in the middle of the Mediterranean. In a small...
Oh, it's quite easy to get.
Easy,
we get low cost flights going there because this is
flights,
our
okay.
yeah, these are touristic islands. Have you heard of Ibiza?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the islands.
Oh,
There's something there that kind of bums me, which is the Balearic Islands are 3 islands. Mallorca, which means the big one, Menorca, which means the smaller one, and Ibiza, which is the middle one, like the bears and the bear story. And we have a lot of Talayot stuff on the big one. We have a lot of Talayot stuff on the small one, but with nothing on the middle one.
I'm looking forward to the video for that one too, because I learned about 2 sites today that I never even heard of before. That one in Turkey and that one, and I just find it so fascinating how all the sites connected through space and time, but like not at the same time. Like you could stretch them if you want and connect them, but I think calling for more classification of these things, and calling traditional dating what it is, it is going to be useful moving forward, don't you think?
Yeah, and what I wish the most, if I had this impact, if my videos have an impact in the world,
yes,
what I'd like to be is the next time I go and visit some place, there's another person there that is like appreciating it. It's so rare that I find people in those sites like looking at those things. It's, if you know, the example that I was talking about between Alatri and Rome happens a lot in most places. So people don't know about it. You could go to Turkey on a trip. You would go to visit the Hittite Empire. You would go to Atusha and not to Alaka or Yuk. That's the first thing. No one drives you to Alaka or Yuk. It's just 20 kilometers down the road, but no one drives you there. And even if you were lucky enough to go to Alaka or Yuk, since that wall is on the back of the building, no one even looks at it. They just pass across.
Interesting.
And that's part of the effort that I need to do. Whenever I'm trying to do a video, I'm looking for footage, and there's no footage. For instance, let me just give you an example like this. Baalbek, you have like the big trilithon stones, 800 tons a piece. I downloaded like 20 videos of drone footage of Baalbek. How many drones filmed the trilithon?
0.
All the videos of the trilithon are some guy on the floor, like filming like this, and and you cannot see anything.
And the perspective's all messed up.
Because they are so massive.
Yeah.
But the drone was there, and the drone, they don't look at it. They just film the columns and the temples and etc. They don't film the thing.
Interesting. So I don't know what's happening in the background, but that's okay.
It's me. I have a printer.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry.
Hey, I think we're getting ready to wind it down. Anyway, this has been a fascinating conversation, and we wish you safe travels when you go on your next journey. You're going to get a lot of great footage and meet people there that appreciate the same things that you do. I know this. It's been so fun today, Henrique. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's why I keep mentioning conferences, dude, because you can't. The internet's great for this, but nothing beats like hanging out with a bunch of ancient history, stone nub, Cyclopean wall nerds like yourself, younger Dryas Impact people, than in person. I promise you that.
I know. I saw you with the shaman.
Great. Oh yeah, you just did their show, didn't you?
Yes.
Very cool.
I've been busy. This is the second in my life.
Nice. Well, third, but we won't count that first one we did. It'll just be this one. All right, man.
That was a great chat.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hit end.
Subscribe to Mike and Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today.